everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Iris and today's topic is how to study and prepare for exams. So the first thing that you do is you need to have an exam prep, and this includes making a list of key terms, concepts, and theories for your course. Another thing is to gather all of the course materials. This includes your first set of notes, which would be your reading notes, your second set of notes, which is lecture notes, lab or tutorial, and also your second read-through. Your third set of notes should be practice questions or problems, self-made questions, and also concept maps. And also, you would need to have your assigned readings, just for you to go through for reference. Within your exam prep, you also want to have an indication of any missing material. Let's say you maybe missed a class because you were sick or you had another personal reason, and you want to also rate the topics from the ones that you understand the most to the ones you understand the least. And as you have that rating scale, it's going to help you to pinpoint which things are more important for you to study and which things are less. You will also be able to find out how much time you'll have to spend for each topic. There are a few exam structures that you are going to encounter. First one would be multiple choice, true false, short answer, long answer, essay, closed book, and open book, and I'll go through each of these in more detail. So for multiple choice and true false exam structure tests, the prep that you would need to have is to be able to know the definitions, concepts, and theories of all the major topics that were taught throughout the course. You want to understand connections between concepts and theories, and you want to know how to apply the concepts and theories. And a helpful way to review is to go over practice questions or problems, or you create your own set of multiple choice or true false questions for yourself to practice before the exam. And if you already had a previous exam, like a midterm, that's also a good place to do a quick review just to see how your professor likes to structure the exam and word the exam. Test taking tips for multiple choice or true false exams. My own experience, I usually spend a minute per multiple choice or true false question. And you want to make sure when you're taking the exam you have enough time to double check your answers, as you might make mistakes on your answer sheet. And if your exam has more than one format, which is possible, usually the short answer, long answer, or essay questions will require more time. So definitely adjust based on what questions appear on your exam. So specifically for multiple choice exams, some test taking tips that I would give you is to not look at the answers right away. You want to read the question first and then come up with the answer yourself. That way it's a clear-headed answer, not something that you're just trying to pinpoint and find out the answers that are provided, because that might mix you up or confuse you if the wording of the answers are a little bit less familiar to you. And if you are stuck and the question seems fairly difficult to you, I would suggest to do a process of elimination. So take off the answers that are definitely incorrect. If it really is just a tough question and you have no idea, taking a guess is better than leaving it blank. And if you are stuck on the question, I would suggest to skip it if it's taking you more than 1 minute to answer it, because you want to make sure you're going through the rest of the questions and throughout the rest of the exam more smoothly. But remember to mark it on the exam and also on your answer sheet if you did skip a question. Because if you don't, you will run through a mistake of maybe skipping certain questions on the answer sheet, and that's going to make other answers before or after when you're bubbling to be incorrect, even though technically you did answer the question correctly. Tips for true-false questions, I would say, is to be careful with the wording of the statements. Sometimes that can confuse people and you're going to choose the wrong answer. You also want to be aware of mixing up concepts that have similar names, words, or related ideas. And once again, like multiple choice questions, if you are stuck, skip it. But make sure you mark it on your answer sheet and also on the exam. Okay, so on to the more time-consuming questions. Are short answer or long answer? Usually with these questions, you're supposed to give like a detailed explanation, definition of a concept or theory in your own words. You also want to demonstrate how to apply concepts or theories within a specific case or situation. And my advice is to always pay attention to keywords in the question. So it might be apply, define, demonstrate, describe, discuss, summarize, compare, contrast. For essay exams, usually you get a set list of questions you can choose from, or you get set questions where you have no choice. Essay exams might have one major question or two questions that you need to answer. Really depends on what your professor prefers. So either way, you're going to be answering like a more broad question, and it really is to really pay attention to keywords. So that's going to help you to approach and write your essay. From my experience, I usually see words like analyze, argue, apply, compare, contrast, critique, evaluate, and explain for these types of questions. Essay exams are really heavy on focusing on relationships. So oftentimes concept maps can be really good for these. So you can actually do quick maps to just for the major topics, so you know which things are related to each other, how they interact, and how they work together. And also things that don't work together, things that are opposite of each other or differentiate with each other. So questions for essay exams are either given prior to the exam or during. So with my experience, I usually just get them during the exam. Haven't really had a situation where I knew the questions beforehand. So if you do get it beforehand, and you're lucky in that sense, you can write an outline for each question and recall that for the exam. And you can also practice writing a timed essay. So in that sense, it might be a little bit easier if you do get beforehand questions that you can prepare for. But if you're like me and you usually get questions during the exam and you can't prepare for that specific question while you're studying, you definitely want to create sample questions for yourself and also outlines for those questions based on some recurring connections, concepts, and theories that you see throughout your course. And then you can also write a timed essay for a sample question that you made. Essay taking tips, I would suggest to read the questions very carefully. And my usual go-to is to choose a question based on this criteria. How well you know the topic and the relationships within the topic. So that's going to be really concept and theory heavy, and application heavy as well, which is the next criteria. How well you can apply the content, and how well you can define or explain the content, and how well you can analyze or critique the content. Once you have chosen the question that you think is most suitable for you to answer, you want to create a brief outline, but it shouldn't take too long. I would say like maybe 5 minutes tops to write the outline, and then use point form. And you want to go through intro, thesis, 3 bodies, and within your 3 bodies, you need to include like concepts, theories, and evidence for whatever you're arguing. And it should be 1 key idea per body paragraph. So don't go off topic. Conclusion, and then you also want to do this outline because it's going to help you configure your thoughts. And if you did do well with the essay prep, the outline is not going to take time at all because you're usually going to be able to recall it if you did a good job creating sample questions or if you had the questions given to you beforehand. And by doing the outline, you're also going to help yourself get marks when you run out of time writing. Because you're a person who's going to mark your exam, they're going to look at what your outline is, and if you do run out of time, at least they know what kind of thought process you were going for, and the fact that you were just missing details, but you still had a broad idea that you were going to write about. For essay exams, you always want to aim for paragraphs and full sentences. Unless you run out of time, you should not go with any point form. Each idea should have a supporting evidence, and you need to provide examples to strengthen your points. So illustrate any ideas that you're saying. Everything in the essay should be related to your thesis. If it's not, and your essay does not match your thesis in the end, you need to go back and rewrite your thesis so that it fits with the rest of your essay. Another format for exams is called closed book, and in this situation you do not have any resources or materials from your course in front of you, nothing like that, and you might feel like memorizing the textbook will help you to do well on the exam, but that's not true. The goal and the aim of the exam is not for you to regurgitate answers. What you want to do is get familiar with the content and be able to work with it. Open book exams are usually where you have the chance to access any course materials or resources. But once again, even though you don't need to memorize the whole textbook, it doesn't mean that you can just rely on having the course materials and resources in front of you to pretty much find and rewrite answers. So you want to expect questions on application, analysis, synthesis, compare and contrast, or evaluation. So when you are creating practice questions to prepare for exam, these should be the kinds of things you keep in mind. And open book, in my experience, lots of case studies based questions. So for open book exams, I would suggest studying it like a closed book. Don't expect that you can rely on your materials. And sticky tabs are your best friends if you want to locate important pages in your textbook and notes. Summary notes are also very helpful. This could be your second or third set of notes that you can take as reference while you're taking the exam. And of course, practice problems and questions prior to the exam is going to be helpful as well. And test-taking tips for open book, I would say answer questions that you don't need your material for first. Don't try to learn information as you take the exam. That's not a good time. Things should be learned way beforehand. If you do refer to your materials, don't write the answer verbatim. That's gonna be a waste of your time. Just paraphrase, get to the main point. And use your materials to double check or enhance your answers when necessary. So it's really the fact that you want to know the content well enough so that if you do give an answer, your materials are going to improve your answer rather than you relying on the materials to get the answer.